So I became interested not only in playing sounds through loudspeakers on my body, carrying them with me, holding them not in my hands but putting them on my back, so to say, but I also became interested in amplification, and that's why I'm looking in that direction, because here's my microphone. And what I realized by recording sounds and by working in the studio and using just amplification in a very common way was that that's really changing. The moment you amplify something, it changes really strongly what your voice is like, or any sound you amplify, especially if you use again these kind of small broken loudspeakers. Then your voice becomes a different voice. I'm a different person now. I feel differently also. It feels as if I have a bigger body, and you might notice from when you're speaking in front of an audience with a microphone, the feeling of the body becomes a different one because your sound is different. And I became very interested in this difference between how the sound changes when you play it through a loudspeaker, and how you can use amplification of sound into something different just by amplifying to make it different. And one of the things I started to work with then are these kind of loudspeakers, which are similar ones to these ones in construction, that their diaphragm is missing. So they need a diaphragm to sound. So these loudspeakers need a surface to sound through. They will sound a little bit like this, but as soon as we put them against the box, you hear them much better. So we can take the cars from before and there they are through the play them through the box. As you hear, a different object will give a different sound. Very softly. I don't think you hear much of this on the video. When we have something like this. Depending on the object we use, the sound is sound differently. And I decided to make a piece for this and take quite simple sounds. Most of them are just noisy or just pitch sound, very simple. There's not really any recognizable sound in it, like passing cars or something like that. And to use tin cans, but much bigger ones. These big ones, I had to collect them from restaurants and make a piece where every tin can is played by a loudspeaker. So there are towers of tin cans and you hear the sound through them with the help of such a kind of loudspeaker. What happens then is that you hear different sounds, of course, but I also use another thing which would not work that well with this transducer, but works with bigger transducers, is that they start to move a bit. So during the performance, the loudspeaker starts sometimes to move a bit and they can become, well, not living beings, but something which is a bit alive. And I'm looking for having giving them their own sound and giving them a kind of liveness in how they move. And at a certain point, and that's of course I did that on purpose, some of them fall. So some of the tin cans fall and others don't. The audience sometimes thinks, oh, something is broken, especially with the first one. There's often someone who even tries to, if it's an installation like setup, to put it back on the tower, like, oh, it got broken. But then with the second and the third tower, it's clear this is meant to be like that. And I like the fragility of the towers, where they kind of look for their sound, but the moment they find it, they also fall apart. So we're gonna watch a short fragment of this piece. Amplifying sound is also something which can be done with a contact microphone. In that case, you won't hear anything of the sound. When I speak here is the contact microphone, you won't hear my voice, but when I touch cardboard, you will hear the sound through loudspeaker. And here again, depending on the surface, when I take the microphone off, it has some kind of foil on it. And I attach it to something else, then it will sound different. What I decided then is to use the sound of the contact microphone, not to amplify something, but to control other sounds. So now I use the contact microphone not to be amplified directly, but to control a different sound. Just in case this wasn't loud enough, I'll repeat this louder. I used this idea for my piece in Paradisum. In this piece I simply eat an apple, and that's the main thing I do. I chose an apple because it has so many different associations for us. Of course, as the title already mentions, in Paradisum, it's about in paradise, where the apple played an important role, and eating the apple is also a sin, so to say. But there are many more parts in history. We know of Paris, who also gave the most beautiful woman an apple. We know of Snow White, who bite in an apple. So biting in an apple, it's something quite heavy loaded with associations. At the same time, many of us are doing that very regularly, and it's not an action we really pay attention to. So I liked this combination of having an action we don't really pay attention to, and at the same time there is a lot of weight on the object. And in this piece I simply eat an apple, and in the beginning you just hear the amplification. Here again, in this case it's not holding the amplification on my hand, but it's the other way around. I eat the apple, and when you sit in the concert hall, it comes from the loudspeaker, so you're kind of very close to my mouth, although I am quite far away from you, and you will hear every chew. And this is important also, that the sound technician really amplifies as well, so you hear really every chew of mine, and every time I hear a bite, you hear. And then in this piece I thought, what if I amplify something which isn't there to amplify technically, but are my associations to eating the apple. So I eat the apple and I add sounds, technologically speaking, the way I just showed you, and not with the microphone only on the apple, but also one on the cheek here. If you sense here, you feel the chewing muscle. So there's a contact microphone on my chewing muscle. You see this also in the video. And every time I chew, the contact microphone gets it and does something with the sound in the computer. It's not playing just one sound file. There are many different things it does, depending on in which byte I'm into. Every byte opens a new sonic world where I'm chewing, so to say, on the byte, and there's happening something with the sound because I'm chewing. And that's what the piece is about what kind of how to find a sound, a perfect sound for eating that apple, and how to get some associations through sound, which you probably normally won't have when you eat an apple. So we are gonna watch a fragment of that piece now.